Hello once again, this is Skip V6 Bravo Golf Tango. This next chapter is the ongoing experimentation I'm doing with different types of dishes for getting an EME system working on 10 gigahertz. After showing part 3 and what was being done with the 6-foot solid prime feed dish compared to the larger 21-foot dish, I had quite a few comments and also a very good offer. One of the organizations I belong to is the Western Canada Weak Signal Association. It's a group of hams that like to build and experiment with VHF and higher frequencies. Unfortunately for me, most of the members are located in Western BC, right in the Vancouver area, which is a fair distance from where I live here in central Alberta. I've become quite good friends with quite a few of them out there, and two members in particular kept enticing me with offers of free goodies for just a price of going out there to pick them up. One of the goodies was a large fiberglass offset feed dish, so that did it. It was time for a road trip. So we loaded up our pickup truck and headed out to Western Canada. It's been many years since I've been to British Columbia, and the gorgeous mountain views and the pristine lakes are well worth traveling. After a couple of days of traveling, we finally got to our destination and met up with some of the group and had a very good lunch together. After all that, we loaded up the back of the truck with boxes of goodies, and Dave helped me get the offset dish on the back of the truck and bolted in and strapped down for the trip home. Now back home, the problem was how to get the dish off the back of the truck without really bothering anybody to come help me. Being out in the country, it's not that easy.
Okay, Ghz. Good. Enough. That's all there is to it.
Now with the dish off the back of the truck, you can see the boxed up goodies that came back with us also. Lots and lots of real good stuff. Later on, I winched up the dish with the old Jeep and hauled it over to the house and gave it a good washing. It had quite a bit of grime on it from sitting in Dave's backyard for who knows how many years. In this picture, you'll see the framework that was used for the solid 6-foot prime feed dish. The challenge was to get this framework to work with the offset dish, which created a few problems. Once again, I was back to the computer to do some technical drawings to just see how things were going to fit. And what wasn't going to fit was more of the issue. One of the first problems I had to face was how was I going to lift this thing up and down inside the garage? It's just, it's not all that heavy, but it's just darned awkward. So I rigged up a snatch block pulley affair on the roof, and here it's being tested and just being tied off on the vise on the workbench. So first thing on the agenda was to build some kind of a frame on the existing dish metalwork and have it so it's adjustable in the angle so I can get the offset just right. I wanted the dish to be pointing at the horizon with the existing framework on the dish mount at 0 degrees. The new aluminum frame bars on the existing dish were hinged at the bottom to the old frame that was on the mount already. And then there was adjustable steel rods at the top so that I could adjust the offset angle to the old mount to anything I wanted, just so I could have the dish being able to aim at the horizon at 0 degrees. Next, I separated the two mounting frames and put the old existing one back onto the existing azimuth pipe and see if this is all going to fit. This will be the first attempt to mate the old mounting frame with a new dish mounting frame. I knew things weren't going to fit, but we'd find out what's going to have to be modified. Okay, we're going. All right, crank it up. Crank, go up fast. Yep. Okay, stop there. I'll take the stand out. Okay, go ahead and crank her up. Okay.
What?
Let's just stop there. There we go. Okay. Hold this. Just hold this and rotate around while I slide this in.
It's cold.
Oh.
Yep.
Remember that goes on the outside and the inside. On the inside. Okay. All right, hold the crank.
It's kind
It's
of
okay.
spinning.
Let it go. Come over here and do the crank. See, it's not really falling there.
Okay.
It's called inside and then I forgot. Jeez.
You said inside.
Here we go. Okay, crank her up. That's funny. Just throw it on the outside. Get hold of there. Just slide this in a bit more here. I guess so.
Hey, don't forget to.
Up a little.
Don't forget to. Omar.
That's it.
Look at that bar.
I did already.
Oh.
Yeah, I think I can get the rest of me.
Huh?
I think I can do the rest.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll just. Oh, yeah. So it came together, everything fit, except I couldn't get the angle I needed for the offset, and that's due to the stand being too high and the dish hitting it. The stand wasn't going to be used originally, and now I realize I have to raise the whole thing by 18 inches. As you can see in this picture, raising it 18 inches isn't going to leave me much room before the top of the dish hits the ceiling. So now, knowing what was going to work and what wasn't going to work, I took it all apart and started to rebuild everything. First thing I had to do was figure out a way how to get the mast 18 inches taller. The price of 3.5-inch steel SCED 40 pipe has gotten outrageous. It was going to cost over $200 for a brand new piece. So I found a small chunk of pipe and welded it at the top, and then welded this 4x6-inch rectangular tube on top of that. Using right angle rulers and bubble levels, I carefully made sure that when it was welded together, everything stayed at right angles to each other. Once again, it was reassembly time. The vertical mast is getting so big now that I almost need to crane and slide it into the lower stand. And when I got it up there and everything else assembled, I just about said to myself, this is getting ridiculous. But anyways, I carried on and slowly winched the dish up towards the ceiling. I had to take it down a couple of times and readjust the snatch block on the dish to get the right angles so things would mate up properly with the upper frame. Finally, the dish angle hung right, and I got it up high enough in the air. I slid the lower support frame back into the new assembly and got the hinge pins put in and the upper support arms for the offset angle mounted. You can tell in these pictures that I didn't have any room to spare. There was only maybe 2-3 inches at the very most for the top of the dish that would be hitting the ceiling, and the pulleys themselves are right up against each other. Now with the whole assembly 18 inches higher, the bottom of the dish clears the support stand and still has plenty of room around the main mast pipe. So there's plenty of room to start figuring out how to build the feed arm support. For this part, I wanted something that was totally adjustable, so that finding the optimized point for the feed later on would be no issues whatsoever to get adjusted. I still had some of the surplus 1.5 inch square aluminum tubing, so I extended the mount that was already built down past the bottom of the dish. Not being totally sure how this is all going to work out, I either C-clamped or vice gripped or just tack welded the pieces together to see if it was going to work mainly. Using this old TVRO feed extend arms that I had, there's 3/4 inch square aluminum tubing again, surplus stuff, I made some arms that would go out to where the feed's going to sit. I made these 2 square small aluminum plates out of 3/16 surplus I had laying around, and this is where the hinge point will be for adjusting the angle. I was kind of surprised that these small square tubes were long enough, so I had pretty well had the idea what I wanted to do. I welded in some of these aluminum tubings in between the 2 arms to hold them together. Then out of some 1/8 inch aluminum plate, I made up we'll call it another hinge point at the end of this assembly, and this is where the feed tray will sit. Again, it's going to be totally adjustable for the angle. With everything looking good, I welded everything up and took it back over to the dish to install back on it. I was happy to see that it still fit. Nothing got badly heat warped. That's one thing nice about aluminum. You can usually bend it back to the shape it was before, but it did fit. Now I had to figure out how this was going to be held in place when the heavy weight of the amplifier and everything else gets on the end of this thing. Using a couple of pieces of real thick aluminum square tubing, I extended the arms out towards the back. Once again, using some 1 inch square steel tubing so I could weld nuts in the ends. That with some ready rod, I made these long adjustable arms that goes from the aluminum part way up to where the main frame is on the dish. This will give us some strength in a kind of a triangle shape. And again, it'll be totally adjustable for setting the angle of the feed support arms. After all that, I took the dish off and took everything apart. Took all the pieces over the welding bench and started welding up the brackets and parts and pieces that I couldn't get at when it was all assembled. It was at this point that I ran out of argon gas for the welder, so everything came to a halt. I still needed to make the hinge brackets or pieces that go on the feed tray that will swivel on the end of the feed arms, so this is how I bend 1/8 inch aluminum at a nice square angle. So this is one of the 2 plates that are cut out, and I milled a slot down the middle of them where I'm going to have the right ankle band. The slot is about halfway through the aluminum, not quite. Next I take that piece of aluminum and I stick it in a vise and very carefully bend it, and where the notch is I get a nice square even right angle bend, depending how far I go with it, of course. The aluminum still has lots of strength, and if I find it's too weak where I bent it, I can always just tack weld it a bit with the aluminum welder. So that's how it's done without a big metal brake. 1/8 inch is pretty hard to bend even in a brake. I've done right angles like this with different thicknesses, even up to 1/4 inch. 3 weeks later, I couldn't believe it took that long to get my argon bottle hydro tested and refilled, but finally. So I picked up where I left off and finished welding up the brackets. Had trouble with the aluminum welder for some reason, but finally got it all tacked together and welded up. Next is a group of short videos all spliced together, showing this thing going back together one more time. And for such a small dish, I can't believe how big it's gotten. Turned into a monster. Well, that's about it for this part. I've flogged this long enough. Still have lots to plan and work on. I have to figure out how to hook up some kind of counterweight assembly. My azimuth drive is very sloppy, so I got to try and fix that or replace it. So lots to do yet. So stay tuned for the next part sometime in the near future, hopefully. Thanks for watching. 73s from Skip. Victor Echo 6 Bravo Golf Tango.